Right then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's me, myself, Ryan Fitzsimons, joined with me today by the brilliant and, you know what, always vocal Ryan McGinley. Ryan, we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to cover everything, but I suppose there's one thing we'll have to talk about, and that is the weekend's result. Since it's the first time I've had you on since that fateful day, we will touch on that in a minute. I'll ask the questions I always do, Ryan, because I'm a nice guy and I like to make sure you're doing well. How are you doing today, Ryan? It's nice to catch up with you. This isn't just the first time I've had you in the channel. This is really the first time I've sort of spoke to you altogether since Sunday. So how you getting on, mate?
I know, mate. I think you're a wee bit MIA this weekend, so I'm glad to see that you're all right as well as I'm all right. Yeah, I'm pretty much over the result. Obviously, Sunday was such a massive disappointment, but you know it's a new week. We've got Sunday to look forward to, so we need to look to the future because there's no point in dwelling on the past, I guess, except for today's video, of course.
Yes, of course. We'll kind of touch on wee bits and bobs from the weekend's game and what it means for us moving forward and everything else. I don't want to talk about it too much because there's one thing that I wanted to make sure I do, Ryan, or I don't do, and that's be too negative and be too much. I don't want to dwell on a defeat too much. There's one thing that I think we need to keep in mind here as Celtic fans, and that's keep the head up and move forward and look towards getting towards a league title now. And there's no point in constantly dwelling on what went wrong at the weekend. We lost a game, you know, that happens. It's football. You can't win it all, and that's sort of the beauty of cup football, isn't it? It is do or die. It's win or go home. And sadly, we didn't win the game. Rangers took the victory, and I've spoke about that in depth yesterday on the channel. So I would be rehashing a lot of the same negatives if I was to speak about it in depth. But you've not had the chance to speak, Ryan. What do you think went wrong on Sunday? Do you think it was just a problem on the day? It looked like one of those games from my seat anyway, where it was just we couldn't really find our rhythm. We couldn't get into it. And I think that we both said the same thing in saying, like, you know, not any of the two teams were particularly fantastic. I think Rangers just happened to be that slightly bit better. Especially as the game went on.
Yeah, which was really weird because he'd played 120 minutes only a couple of days ago. So I don't even know why that was like happening. It was a bit unacceptable the way our fitness levels just dropped, especially during the extra time. But I thought both teams were quite poor for the majority of the game. I didn't think it was a game of high quality. I think out of the two semi-finals, you've got to say the one on Saturday was a bit better than the one on Sunday, which was quite surprising. Usually it's the other way about. But Rangers took their chances at the end of the day. The second goal is very, very unfortunate from Starfelt, but Sakala still puts the pressure on him. He makes a mistake and they get the goal. Arfield's goal was a good goal. But very, very disappointing. I don't think Celtic turned up whatsoever. I thought some of our star players really went missing in that game, which was really, really disappointing. Certain players that I'd been calling upon to do well, to sort of announce themselves in that fixture just didn't do so, which was really. And I don't want to single out players, but we know who we're talking about. There's guys that haven't turned up.
The beauty of doing what we do, Ryan, and talking on podcasts every week and me doing YouTube every day is your thoughts are always out there. Your thoughts are there to be corrected. Basically on every given occasion. You know, sometimes you go into a game and think someone's going to be rotten, sometimes you go into a game and think somebody's going to be brilliant, and you ask for them or you call upon them to turn up. And in your situation, I remember in the podcast you were saying, oh, this could be a big one for the likes of Jota and some other individuals, and we never quite got it. But that's the beauty of what we do, I suppose. You can't get everything right. Sometimes things do get thrown back in your face. But I do agree with you, Ryan. I think it was a disappointing aspect of the game for us, and where we didn't see big performances from bigger players. And I feel like it would be harsh to highlight individual players when the team probably weren't as collective as great as they normally are. But I can see where you're coming from, Ryan. It is a bit of a letdown, and it makes it a little bit tougher to take sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only a couple of players that I could probably give pass marks to overall. The only players I would say is, even though he got the own goal, I thought he was our best defender on the day. I thought Starfelt was good. He played all right. I thought Carter Vickers was okay. Maeda ran his socks off. He was just a bit unlucky with a couple of chances. And apart from that, maybe Maeda. Not I've already said Maeda. I said him twice there. O'Reilly.
I thought McGregor was okay.
Yeah, McGregor was okay as well. But apart from that, there were so many players that were just so disappointing. Don't want to single them out, but Jota was really, really. He was really, really
frustrating. Is the
word?
word?
Frustrating, disappointing.
So yeah, we've got a lot to kind of cover. Obviously, we're going to talk about the VAR stuff and everything else. As McGinley's been interrupted there by, I can only assume, his mother or such. Nice to see that. Hello there, Mrs. McGinley, or whoever it may be. Aye, look, listen, we've got a lot to cover on this stream. We're going to talk about a lot of things. So yeah, the game on Sunday, we'll kind of put it behind us. Ryan, it is now about recovery. If you're there now and available to speak, I'm not entirely sure. Give me a nod or yes, nod. You're okay. He's okay, everybody. Hey, he's fine. Handling this like a professional. There is an way forward for us, and that is to go and try and get this league title. We need to move forward in the most positive manner. And listen, winning a cup double, a double and a cup. I can't even speak. A double, including a cup and a league title. If we can go ahead and do that this season, it would be marvellous for us. So it is just about keeping the head down, picking up from all the positives we've had this season and trying to get that over the line, right?
Yeah, because it's been a really successful season otherwise. That didn't really define our season on Sunday. Other games will. The league will define our season. I said before the season even started, I would take us being competitive in the league. That's what we are. We're ahead of schedule when it comes to that. We're very much the favourites to go on and win the league, barring any hiccups. But that's the thing. We can't allow the Scottish Cup to seep into our league form. Sunday's a new game. It's a separate competition altogether. So we need to go out and be confident, because the last time we played in the league, we won 7-0. So we've been in really, really good form. So we need to take that into the next league game.
Yeah, and hopefully we do. It is a big game. It's a tough one. We head to Dingwall, of course, on Sunday to take on Ross County. It's not going to be an easy game. The last time we went there, Ryan, of course, we know how it ended. Anthony Ralston with that very late winner. It was one of those defining games this season. I'm hoping we don't need to repeat that. I would like the job to be done as early as possible on Sunday to try and escape any nerve, because you know what comes after that. It's the big one. We play Rangers the week later in the 5th derby of the season, which could be defining as to where the league title ends up. Because basically, if we win on the weekend, we can secure a league title against Rangers. There is an opportunity of that. So we'll wait and see what happens. But we'll come to that at the weekend, and we'll talk about that probably on the podcast whenever that gets filmed this week. Let's talk about the big story in Scottish football today. Now, I just want to explain why we're live today. I appreciate everybody tuning in just now. We're at about 140 live viewers. A lot of people in the comments section. Fantastic. Thank you for coming out. Feel free to share your thoughts. We'll get on to them as soon as possible and bring in as many as possible. Also, make sure to like and subscribe. But I'll talk about why we are live. So basically, me and Ryan both have a very big uni deadline tomorrow. I've been working ahead all day to try and get uni work done. I then have work at 6 o'clock, which is obviously 40 minutes away. So yeah, it's a bit of a tight day. I never had time to sit down and do a traditionally recorded video. And I'm lazy as fuck. So here we are live for today's bit of content. Thank you, Ryan, for joining me again. But the vote has been done. The SFA and the SPFL and everybody else and the clubs and everybody involved sat down today to vote in favour of VAR being introduced to the Scottish Premiership next season, and it will be launched midway through next campaign, as 41 out of the 42 clubs voted for VAR. Only one club in the entire pyramid voted against the introduction of VAR. Ryan, I don't know yet, and I don't mean this a joke, has there been anybody leaked or anything to not have voted for it? I still have no idea.
It was a championship team. That's the only thing I know.
It's Dunfermline, isn't it? It's definitely Dunfermline. It's Buick's mob. It's Buick's mob. So one side voted against VAR, which is nice to see, because apparently Celtic were the ones who were going to be so anti-VAR, Ryan. Apparently Celtic were so against it, you know?
The howls from the Ibrox club were that Celtic were the ones that were rejecting VAR, even though it would benefit us more than any other team in the country, probably, which is quite weird. So, it's good to see that rumour was sort of debuffed.
And I wasn't surprised it was debuffed, because I was almost certain that Celtic would have voted to probably take in VAR. And look, I've been, and I know you're a bit more pro VAR than me, because I'm very anti VAR. However, I did sit down with the realisation months ago that this would happen. VAR would come to Scottish football. It was only a matter of time. And listen, if it's going to somewhat correct everything that goes wrong in this country with refereeing decisions, then I suppose it is probably the natural step, the sort of progression that we need in this country. Now, I've made my thoughts perfectly clear. I don't think it will be the fix to this problem's refereeing, this refereeing problem that we have up here. I really don't think that this is going to be the quick solution that some people do think it will be. I think this is going to take a lot of teething and a lot of fixing along the road. But I suppose it is a first step, Ryan. It will be introduced midway through next season. That alone is a massive sort of talking point in itself. There's going to be a lot of complaints next season already about consistency. No VAR for the first half, VAR for the second half. It could have probably been delayed or brought in earlier if possible. But it's coming, Ryan. How are you feeling in general about the introduction of the assistant refereeing video programme, you know?
I think regardless of whether you like it or not, it was going to be inevitable, especially because basically every other big league, I know Scotland isn't a big league, but most other big leagues, when we talk about the coefficient, probably the other 9 leagues have it. So it's important that we need to keep up with the times. The only question that I had on it was, what about goal line technology? Does that just get vetoed because we've got VAR? Do we use VAR?
Well, I suppose that, we won't have the traditional goal line technology system that they have at Hampden, for example. The referees have it in their watch and it buzzes if it goes over the line. I'd imagine now if there's a question as to whether or not the ball does go over the line, it will be raised with the VAR. Like, surely they'll just zoom in the cameras and go, Bobby Madden's like, nah, it's not over the line, even though it's probably hitting the actual net. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of VAR, but I do agree with it being there. I'm not going to be a massive supporter. It's the be all and end all of football, but at the same time, I do want it implemented in Scottish football. More so due to the fact that it will just show the incompetency of the referees in a bigger light. And if that is the case, then FIFA, UEFA, or whoever will get involved. If the incompetency is that bad and that blatant, if you just hope that the refereeing does improve. But I think the refereeing would only improve if you get them in full time, if that's their full time job.
Absolutely.
Because you can give people a machine, but they still need to work the machine. The machine's only as good as the person that's working it. So it'll be interesting. And I don't agree with it being halfway through the season, because you just know there's going to be flashpoints, and every single headline next season is going to be like, oh, that such and such, if VAR was in at this point, then such and such decision get made. And it's such a pointless argument. We know when it's coming in. So I don't know why they would make those headlines, but I would either bring it in this summer or bring it in next summer. Why do it halfway through? It's as if you're changing the goalposts halfway through a season.
Yeah, exactly. It really is frustrating in that sense, because you know that, and I'm not going to say that Celtic fans won't be guilty of it, because we would do the exact same thing probably. Not so much me, because I never like using refereeing problems as an excuse. If we don't win a game, we don't win a game. But, it's going to get to that point where one of the top 2 sides in this country next season is going to be using this as an excuse, aren't they? There's going to be that inevitable, oh, well, if we had VAR in the first half, we would have got a penalty and won that game, and we're going to win that sort of discussion from one side of the city is probably going to come up, which is really frustrating. But, listen, you can only take it what we're getting. I suppose it's not up to us. It's outside our sort of control. Maybe they'll look at it. Maybe if there's a complaint about that, they will sort of fix it. They might delay its introduction to the following season. But I think that the SFA, or the SPFL, will be probably rather excited to bring this out to try and bring the pressure off the referees. But that's the problem, Ryan, that you've just brought up. We've not got full-time referees. How can we trust them to make the right decisions with VAR?
I know. The thing is, the referees bring the pressure on themselves by making such scandalous errors. I mean, how many times did Beaton get it wrong? Not Beaton, Bobby Madden get it wrong on Sunday? I'm not going to... You don't want to be accused of having sour grapes, but he was absolutely inept for both sides, I would say, last week. It was absolutely dreadful. But you won't hear anything about that at all, because if Celtic fans bring it up, then they'll get accused of being sour grapes and bad losers.
Yep.
So you get no winners in that sort of situation. But no, we know that the refereeing in this country has been an absolute shambles for years. Both sides have said it, both Celtic, Rangers, every team have probably said the refereeing has been a shambles.
And that's one point I wanted to bring up about my live stream yesterday. I got a lot of Rangers fans in the comment section giving it the whole always cheated, never defeated pattern. And I repeated myself umpteen times in the video saying I am not blaming the referee for Celtic's loss on Sunday. But you're allowed to criticise a referee's performance if you lose a game. You know, that's those conversations are allowed to happen. You know, and this is the thing, you know. We're going to be talking about them so much more next season. The VAR, its introduction is probably meant to bring down the talk of referees. It's probably meant to squash all conversations about the decisions. Ryan, the numbers just going to keep going up and up. Headlines, newspapers, articles, media is going to be filled with referees' decisions and wrong decisions next season when VAR comes in.
Yeah, and you're just hoping that it gets used in the same way that the Champions League uses it rather than the way the Premier League uses it, because I think there's a big start difference. It looks more fluid when it's used in the Champions League. It's not used as it's not a complete sideshow, which it is in the Premier League. Every game it seems as if it is getting affected by VAR, and sometimes for the good, but a lot for the bad. But it is going to bring headlines, and it's going to bring more and more attention to the referees, because it will look as if the VAR is doing the job for the referees, which will ask even more questions or provide even more headlines. So, I mean, I'm all for it, but at the same time, I can see the problems that it's going to bring. But that's just due to teething issues, and I just hope that a couple of years down the line, it'll be something that we're all used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to bring up on screen now, Ryan, very quickly, if I can share my screen for a brief moment. On screen here, for the stream and for everybody who is watching at home, we have the cost of VAR for the Scottish Premiership sides next season. It is being spread amongst the top flight. Whoever finishes 12th in the league will pay £67,000, and it keeps going up and up and up, as you can see here, to where the top side, which will hopefully be Celtic, finishing first, will pay just close to £200,000, 16.29% of the share, which isn't, you know, a massive amount of money for Celtic, but you know, that is just basically the cost there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Ryan. It should be something that Celtic will probably pay out. And I think there was a lot of talk about, you know, the likes of Celtic and Rangers paying for the whole thing, which was floating around the internet for a while. But no, it looks as though it's being spread. And yeah, I mean, what is there anything you really want to comment on that? It's just I see a lot of people talking about the fees. This
is another problem with the split, because depending on where you go there, like 6 or 7, seventh, you could have more points than the person in 6, but the team in 6 are going to be paying more money than VAR than the team that are in 7th, even though that they could have less points or more points, whatever way it works. That's a bit of another problem with the split. I know there's a lot of good and bad points to the split, but it's just another one. But I'm fine with the bigger teams paying more money, because the bigger teams want it more at the end of the day. So if you want it more, then you pay the money.
Yeah, I suppose
if it enhances the game and it enhances the sort of professionalism of the game, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I suppose if you get clubs like Celtic and Rangers who are wanting it as much as, you know, especially Rangers over this past year, who've been wanting it so much and crying out for it, you know, they'd be expected to pay for more. It's just, you know, you look at it must be gutting for a side like, you know, if a Brough, say, did come up to the top flight, to then have to part with £67,000. But I suppose if they've voted yes for it, you know, they know what they're getting themselves into.
I don't think they would need to pay for it until the next season.
Right. So that's right. Yeah. Of course, that would make sense.
I'm just looking at the money. I mean, 140,000 for the team that would finish second. I mean, that's nearly half of Aaron Ramsey's wages. I just hope we get more usage out of it than they have with Aaron Ramsey, to be honest.
You couldn't resist that wee dig there, could you? You could not resist. Here's how it'll work is. Yeah, here's how it'll work on screen here as well. It's going to be used in 7 different areas across the top flight: penalty box decisions, goals scored, straight red card offences, serious misapplications of laws, such as goals scored from direct or drop balls, throw-ins, etc. Cases of mistaken identity at the taking of a penalty kick and the kicks from the penalty mark, and obviously goalkeepers moving from the line, etc. And for serious missed incidents in matches. So pretty much resembles everything down south, Ryan. I think that the one this season that most folk will talk about is probably offside calls when it comes to the VAR decisions and whether or not they'll be correcting those. Do you know one thing that about seeing all this, Ryan, is I hope, and with the quality of our referees in this country, I hope that it doesn't take away from their application of rules and matches. And by that, what I mean is, are we now going to see linesmen taking their job less seriously? Not less seriously, but scared to make decisions because they know that VAR is going to correct it anyway. We've got such an incompetent bunch of referees anyway that I can't deal with it being any worse.
Yeah, no, it's an odd one too because, like I said, the machine's only as good as those that are working it. So you would hope that the linesmen would just continue to do their job and do it the way it works down south, and do it to the best of their ability. And then if they get the decision wrong, then VAR will overturn. VAR's there to help the referees at the end of the day, so they should just do their job as normal and then have that safety net to fall back on if they do make a mistake.
Yeah. But that's basic VAR talk. Anything else you'd like to add, Ryan? I think we've basically covered everything in terms of VAR introduction to the league. It's
VAR,
going to be yeah.
I'm
I
just
think
pretty unanimous with the clubs. Because it would just be even more problematic if you had maybe like a 60% voting yes and 40% voting no, and then it would cause friction between the clubs. But I'm glad that 41 out of the 42 are all for it. It makes the transition a bit easier.
Yeah, it does. Instead of revotes and recounts and dodgy emails being sent last minute and all this nonsense, we don't need to get any of that. The other only thing to talk about today, Celtic B team, they played against Rangers B once again. It feels like they've been playing each other every 2 days, man. They played each other again today. Rangers won on penalties. Celtic fielded quite a strong side, Ryan, and all things considered. Mikey Johnson was in there, Christopher Jullien was in there. We've seen the likes of Karamoko Dembele. Did you manage to catch any of the game tonight, Ryan?
I watched the last 15 minutes in the penalty shootout. So I arguably watched our worst sort of performance because I held up until then we were pretty good because we obviously went up 1-0, 1 each, then it was 2-1, 2 each. Dembele looked okay. Julian looked all right. I thought he would stand out a wee bit more given the opposition he's playing against, or the sort of B team sort of opposition he was playing against. But I just wonder about Julian. For me, I wonder why he was playing the 90 minutes. Is that because Vickers won't be playing on Sunday, or
I'm not too sure. It's a good point. You're cutting out big time, McGinley, so I'm just going to kind of jump in here. You look like you're fucking teleporting or something as well. You went quite fuzzy as we get to the end. But Julian, being in the side, pretty weird. I think it's just maybe a case of getting minutes into his legs more than anything. So yeah, I don't think that it's going to be too detrimental as to what happens with Carter Vickers or anybody else. We'll see what happens. I think he needs football. It's now or never for Julian, I think, in terms of his Celtic career. And if he's not going to get minutes in the first team, then they may as well give him minutes in the B team if he's eligible for a game. So I think it'll probably mostly come down to that. But yeah, I mean, disappointing. Karamoko Dembele, though, putting in a great performance at moments in the game. Could have probably caused more of an issue at the weekend, Ryan, than some others that came on the pitch.
I said it. I said it would be a better option than Forrest at the weekend. The fact that he can go and beat a man is something that Forrest can't do at the moment, or can't do anymore. I would have much rather had Dembele on because I thought he would have given his legs in the last 15 minutes to sort of pose a problem. And it's now another for Dembele as well when you think about it, because he's out of contract in summer. He would have been desperate to be on the bench for that game and show people what he's made of, to show why, if there was any doubt about his ability, he could put that to rest. But no, I think he was playing in the B team later on, or either yesterday. It was either on the day or like the day before. So he didn't play in that game, which was really disappointing. But like you want this guy to come in and show what he can do. And that seemed like a really good, especially because of the size of the squad as well. Because obviously we had more players on the bench than we do in the league, so it would have been good to have seen Dembele, but obviously that wasn't to be the case.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap up there. I've got 25 minutes till I start my shift at work. McGinley, it's been an absolute pleasure you joining me today. Thank you to everybody who's been watching along, about 200 viewers right now. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back tomorrow with some content. Ryan will be back on probably in the podcast as well later on in the week as we head into that game against Ross County. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Ryan, thanks once more, mate.